Hello, everyone, and welcome to Curated Classical, the channel for discovering the power and diversity of music. Today is Random Thoughts Thursday. So, something I've been thinking about for a little while now is the fact that pop music and jazz music and classical music, when it comes to their development over time, they sort of took the same sort of trajectory. What do I mean by that? Well, when a pop album or a rap album releases today, we expect that album to be a new, unique artistic experience. We expect it to be a sort of coherent, a coherent piece of art, a coherent message that's different from the previous records that came before it. And we expect that the tracks or the songs on each album are unique to that album. We these days we expect that, a song like Humble, that song belongs to the album Damn. It can't be from any other album in Kendrick Lamar's discography, for example. But pop music wasn't always like that. Back in the old days, say like Elvis Presley, Irving Berlin, Frank Sinatra, there wasn't as much of a conception of like this album is a unique artistic message that's separate from the other albums. It was looser, it was more just functional and less artistic. There'd just be a bunch of songs on an album, the most popular ones, the ones that are gonna get people listening, and then you slap a title on it like Evening with Frank Sinatra or something like that. And the songs didn't necessarily have to be specific to the album. It was more interchangeable. You could have what's a good song? You could have My Way by Frank Sinatra on this album or that album. The cohesiveness of the artistic vision wasn't as important in records, in the pop records in the older times, like 40s and 50s, say. And what's interesting to me about that is that classical music sort of took the same trajectory in terms of moving from music that it was functional and worked and was not necessarily focused on unique artistic expression to music that was now focused on unique artistic expression, just like pop music. So for example, in the Baroque era, composers like Bach and Vivaldi, they didn't just write music because they had something to say. They were employed by the church or the court, and they just wrote music on a weekly basis for entertainment purposes or for the church service purposes, because that was their job. And so music was more, the writing of music was more based on functionality and what worked and what didn't work. There wasn't a sense back then of this music has artistic merit, and there wasn't a sense of, there was a sense that it had artistic merit, but there wasn't a sense of like, I'm writing this for posterity's sake. I'm writing this for the future generations, and artwork that will speak to people, that will be timeless. There wasn't that conception at all when Bach and Vivaldi and those guys were writing music. In fact, they would have thought you'd be crazy if you listened to their music now, today. They wouldn't have expected that. They just wrote music, a weekly piece, and once that piece premiered, that was pretty much it. So this idea that music is a timeless art that transcends, generations wasn't a thing back then. And it wasn't until Beethoven's time and onwards that composers started writing music with more artistic intent and more focus on unique artistic expression and vision, just like a lot of pop records are written today. That's why so many composers wrote so much in the past compared to now. Brahms from the 19th century wrote 4 symphonies. Haydn from the 18th century wrote 104 because because he was employed by a court, that was his job. So it's like making a spaghetti recipe, and for every time you make it, it's the same, except maybe like 1 or 2 ingredients are changed. Versus Beethoven and onwards, composers, when they make their spaghetti, they're not just changing 1 or 2 ingredients and making it the same otherwise. They have to deconstruct the entire dish and make a totally unique thing every single time. That's why there wasn't as much written by later composers as there was by past composers, because that amount of reinvention and thinking about personal artistic expression takes more time. So I just found it really interesting that the 2 genres, classical and pop and rap and all those, they took a similar sort of progression, a similar sort of artistic trajectory in their development. And even jazz also did this to an extent, because you look at older jazz records, jazz artists like Art Tatum, the older ones, they tend to have a set of standards, a set of pieces that they play, and they're all on. Those standards tend to exist on each album. It's the same set of like 10 songs on each album. Of course, in jazz, the difference in performance is vastly different. That's kind of the point of jazz, is that the performance of the songs is different every time. But nevertheless, it's still the same standards, the same songs on basically every album. And then like every, say, 5 or 10 years, they would add a few more songs, and we get a different set of songs that would be on a bunch of different albums. There wasn't the sense that this song belongs to this album. It's a unique expression of this album, this artistic vision on this album. And you're seeing jazz artists, modern jazz artists, turn to that sort of thing more now too. If you listen to jazz artists like Snarky Puppy or Tigran Hamassin, they're writing albums that are the songs are unique to that album more original songs, and so they are moving in that direction too. Jazz is as well, of each album, each piece of art being its own artistic vision in and of itself, rather than it being this interchangeable, more functional, more practical conception of an album. So I just thought that was interesting that all these genres have the same sort of development, the same sort of trajectory in their development. And I wonder if it's caused by something. Maybe it's a certain law of the universe that this happens. Or maybe it has to do with economic development. Artistic circles that are more economically developed have artists that have more time to think about unique artistic expression. I don't know, but I found that interesting, and that's my random thought for today. So if you enjoyed, drop a like, subscribe to my channel, and let me know your opinion. What do you think about this this discovery I've made, this sort of observation I've made? Have you made the same observation before? What do you think? Comment down below. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next video.